show. My name is Joey. This week I am joined by Neil.
Hello.
By Paul.
You're right.
And by Dom.
Hi there.
Moments of the week. I mean, Dom, outside of the one that we would have, which is two of us actually meeting in real life that aren't me and Paul for once, is I'm sure that would be both of our highlights, but if we can just discount that for a moment. What would you start us off with, Dom?
Oh God, you've really dropped me in this.
Does anyone have one quickly that was a little goodbye Dom time?
I guess Harmer's goal against Luton, because that was a moment of quality, and we'd been plugging away in that game, and we deserved an equaliser. But with the way the season is going, you kind of wonder where that's going to happen. But then, just smack bang into the back of the net, something to get behind.
I saw it again earlier. I'm surprised at how far away he was. I thought he was right on the edge of the area, but it's a fair distance, isn't it?
It's a decent hit.
It's a decent hit indeed. Neil, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. I was going to go for Hamer, actually. I thought I was going to say Hamer's goal, but I watched the highlights back again, and I've decided to go for Gyökeres' goal, partially for Sheaf's pass, which I know we have a debate on just how useful it was, but I think it's very good. But I'm more inclined to say just because that is optimum Gyökeres in terms of everything we need him to be. You know, beast up front, outlet when we need to get up front quickly, and for somebody to actually be able to finish. He does a lot of the other stuff regularly, but the finishing is kind of hit and miss. So to do all of it in one go was very lovely.
I was very surprised he scored it.
Yeah, given what he did a few minutes beforehand, it's kind of, they're not the ones he puts away very often, are they? No. He's just bumbling his way towards the goal where it's seemingly easy. But I just love the pace. I thought the fact that he could just smash his way past that player, and then when he got through, everything connected how it's supposed to. That's how he should be most of the time. If we had him playing like that most of the time, we wouldn't be this version of us.
He also made it much more difficult for himself than he needed it to by putting it to the goalkeeper's near post, didn't he? And you could see the keeper was a bit like, oh man. But I was very, very glad when he scored. Paul?
As I haven't been on for a while, I'm going to do a couple. One of them is Dominic Hyam going, which still wrangles. I think what wrangles most is the fact that everyone seems to be quite accepting of this and doesn't seem. We kept the other players, and it's like, yeah, but we kept nearly giving him Player of the Year. There's a reason for that. So missing Hyam, and then seeing his Scorpion kick goal for Blackburn, sort of rubbing salt in the wound. Another thing that we've talked about quite a lot over the last, however long we've been doing this now. Sometimes you need a nice injury to sort of get rid of someone out of the team or put your better team players on the pitch. And in the Luton game, Michael Rose went down injured. And oh boy, were we disappointed by that. And then luckily, and since then, we haven't conceded a goal. And I'm not saying it's like, it's not a coincidence. However, there could be cause and effect here with young Master Rose no longer being in the team. So yeah, Michael Rose. And then the final thing is, I'm going to throw in a third, because why not, is then you look at the start of, we got a very, very important run of 11 games between now and the start of the World Cup. And for, I believe, 4 of those, young Mr. Hamer's going to miss because he kicked someone in the head. And we could debate all day whether or not he kicked him in the head or he didn't kick him in the head. But me and Joe were stood right next to each other. And as soon as they went on the floor and as soon as he wriggled around, we were like, he's getting sent off here. It was as clear as day.
I don't know who's arguing. I've seen so many people argue against it. And I just...
I have a viewpoint.
Go on, Neil.
So I'm not arguing against it because I was the same as you. I saw it happen. I was like, yeah, he's getting sent off.
Because he kicks him in the head, yeah.
My only argument is I don't think he knew he was kicking him in the head. I think he had no idea where he was going to kick him. So he's like, I'm just going to kick him. Also, I don't think he wanted to he was just getting tangled up. It was all tangly, and him being him, he just got all angry again. So I don't think he wanted to kick the guy in the head specifically. But
what was quite interesting was the Birmingham City fan.
Detangle himself.
there was a Birmingham City fan I had a quick discussion with on Twitter, not a massive discussion with, but a very quick one. And he went 5 minutes before Heyman lost it. He said that from where I didn't notice it. I'm not saying I saw it, I didn't. But he said that like him and his mates were like, he's in trouble. And they said like he didn't describe what happened, but he said like 5 minutes before Heyman had basically just lost his shit. And he said he wasn't surprised when he got sent off. And I said I didn't see it. So but it's like that young lad who came on for Birmingham, the Man United loan.
Hannibal.
Yeah, he was riding a couple of players. Like, he was clearly just winding people up. Like he got someone booked, didn't he, by waving the imaginary yellow card and that sort of shit. But when he came on, the interest level of the game just increased. He was just an interesting player to watch. But apparently, like, something had obviously happened, and he's just like, yeah, we weren't surprised when he got sent off. And you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Like, I wasn't surprised. When they went to the ground, like, as soon as they both hit the ground, it was like, Heyman's going to get sent off here. He's going to do something stupid. And then you watch him, you're like, yeah, he's going to get sent off. Oh, he's got sent off. That doesn't surprise me.
He wasn't able to detangle himself from that situation without kicking the guy in the head. You just knew that was going to be part of it. So, you know, he was clearly going to get sent off. I want to see the best in him.
Who are you, his lawyer?
Oh, yeah, I'm trying my hardest here. It's really hard with him, though, isn't it?
You're doing a great job, mate. You're doing a great job, but you've got very hard material to deal with. So, yeah, my final one of the week is the fact that we're going to play a lot of games now without our best centre-half because we sold him, and without our best centre midfielder because
Did you say 11 games?
Sent off.
It's
11 games.
11 games in 6 weeks?
It's 11. Basically, we played 8 games in October. It's on the 12th of November. So basically, we've got between now and the start of the World Cup, we play 11 games. Got 8 at home, 3 away, and that will basically mean that by the time the World Cup starts, we'll be parity between home and away games. But you know,
right.
But yeah, so the next 6 weeks is going to be absolutely fucking huge. And in that time, we play like Burnley at home, Sheffield United at home, and our home form's shit anyway. But you know, we haven't played at home. Unless you include all the games last season, which we didn't win.
But you're assuming that his replacement isn't going to be very good.
What, Todd Kane?
It's getting better and better this season, isn't it? Although saying
so
that,
I'm back,
I didn't
boys.
expect that Joe Linton or I didn't expect that Alex Iwobi or Joe Linton would be good central midfielders, and they turned out to be very well. Certainly Joe Linton. Maybe Todd Kane is the central midfielder we've been waiting for. Maybe this is the weird plot twist to this season, is that actually it's Todd Kane comes in and kind of runs the show next to Ben Sheaf. Kane never even gets back in.
You expect him to have Philip Lahm and Eccles.
Yeah.
Well, I think Eccles has sort of let himself down by not being a great right wing back. So like they do try him every now and then in his preferred position, but. He played at Burton against Bristol City in the central midfield, and that was an absolute disaster. But he was alongside Jamie Allen.
Yeah, he's not going to play him. He's going to play Jamie Allen back there, isn't he? Then find something else to do. They'll put
Palmer in or something along
those lines. Yeah,
you wonder how long Palmer needs to get back to fitness. But I think we've probably said that on every single podcast we recorded this season. Go on then, Paul. We're gonna do Luton and Birmingham.
Moment of the week seeing.
Yeah. One moment of the week was Harmer getting sent off, so I don't need to bore everyone. For me, on the other side of it from you though, Neil, is what's it is. It's a little bit like, I don't know. It's like profiling someone, isn't it? As soon as I don't know, the second that they go down and legs start to wiggle. Is you kind of like, well, I know.
Just stay still.
Yeah, you kind of think your reputation precedes you, mate. If your head has gone anywhere near someone, leg has gone anyone else near someone else's face, you're probably getting sent off for it. So just think twice. I know we've talked about this a million times, but I'm going to say it again. I don't want him to change. Everyone's really annoyed at him and called him immature and stuff like that. But I just think we know what he is. I want opposition players to see him and go, oh, fuck. just straight away at the start of the game, just be like, it's the last person I want to play against. He's really good, and he's going to kick the shit out of me all fucking game. And I just think that's going to come with some sendings off, innit? I think Patrick Vieira got sent off 8 times for Arsenal, didn't he? You just don't get the impression that Arsenal fans would look back and just be like, "Oh, I wish he didn't miss so many games."
Yeah, I think there's literally nothing he did the other day.
Never mind.
Isn't there a stat?
And then,
Sorry, there was a stat earlier I saw that there's only been 4 sending off in the entire Premier League season so far. So if you think the amount of games that have been played, and Hamer's been sent off twice in 4 games, or 5 games.
It's great.
It's great. All right, Luton. Okay, from what I remember, and I could be wrong, someone will point at me and laugh in a second, but I'm pretty certain that the Luton game was our first game post the transfer window. Yeah? So it was the point where we'd sold Dominic Hyam. Yeah, so it was a chance to watch our newfangled new signings. Anyway, so what surprised me most, and I'm going to moan about this, is just how few players we've signed this calendar year. In 2 transfer windows, we've signed 4 players. One of them, Casey Palmer, who we'll still be discussing getting fit in 2027. We signed Panzo and Doyle as centre-halves, and we signed Jake Bidwell as a left-wing back. And we signed the other kid from Palace, who we've already sent back. So we've signed 3 defensive players and an attacking player this calendar year, in which we don't really have a good record. So went down to Luton. As I said, I went down to Luton because I'd never been to Luton. I didn't go down to Luton for any particular other reason, because I thought we'd lose. And we didn't. That was good. But I did go down to Luton because I'd never seen us play there. And then we just got into the ground, and then Luton attacked and started quite well. And then Gyökeres was through on goal in a minute, in a sort of thing that you don't really see much from Gyökeres, where he put the ball wide when he really should have scored. He really, really should have scored. And then Luton put the ball into the box. And Dabo, Dabo's an interesting one at the moment, but he didn't deal with it. Neither did Michael Rose, neither did McFadzean, but their guy did and slammed it into the back of the net. And you were like, okay, 1-0 down, this will be great. And then, I believe, I could be wrong, that Gyökeres should have scored again with a free header at the far post, which the ball came back to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he headed it straight at the keeper. And you were like, oh, blimey. And then, we had the amazing pass from Ben Sheaf, which we all agree is an amazing pass because Gyökeres is quick. If that had been Godden, it would have been an awful pass to the opposition. And I'm going to skip forward to the Birmingham game. I'm sorry, Dom, I might be ruining this for you. There was a pass in the first half where Sheaf tried to play the ball through to Matty Godden, and Matty Godden didn't look behind him to see where the ball was and just ran in a direct line and then turned around and went, oh, the ball's there. And it's like, you really should have been spotting that. Anyway, so Gyökeres scored, great goal, 1-1. Sort of played all right after that. Knocked the ball around nicely for 4 minutes before Luton scored again. And went 2-1 up. And we were like, okay, parity confirmed. Back to where I'm expecting us to be, losing and being shit. And then we got back into the game. We did what we do. We play quite nice football. We don't really look like scoring. We don't really do much. But we were okay. And Luton were like, well, we're 2-1 up. We don't really win at home. So we'll keep playing what we're doing. And then the guy, Harry Cornick, who I always rate whenever when we seem to play him, was having a really good game and just basically kept overloading on the wings. So they had the guy up front who Dominic will talk about because he knows what he's talking about, the striker they got from Milton Keynes Dons.
Morris.
Carlton Morris from Barnsley.
Barnsley, that was it. If we played
Did
him
have
before...
to MK Dons.
Yeah, he was really good.
Yeah.
He wasn't very good in the
before.
warm-up last season. He put 7 balls in a row over the net when he was warming up last season. I remember that specifically. And I was expecting that version of him the other week. And that was annoying because he looked impeccable. He looked ridiculously good.
It's like Adebayo missing that penalty in the Johnson's Paint Trophy for Walsall, and then just absolutely terrorising us in the Championship
What is it about
years
this,
later.
I've never heard of him. And then the only performance I can put on, he was like the guy who was it Kelvin Davis, who played for Forest from Villa last season.
Keenan Davis.
That was just a one-man attack, and you're like, this guy's brilliant. And they had 3 or 4 players floating around him. They were overloading the defence. We were looking shaky. And then at the end of the first half, I'm pretty certain in saying they hit the post. And you were like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be a great second half. And then they made the substitution at half time, which Harry Cornick went off, and they brought on the guy you just mentioned up front, and they went 2 up front, and it was like, okay. And they lost a lot of their momentum and a lot of their fluidity, and allowed us back into the game. And then we sort of grew with confidence because our defence was more solid, because they weren't asking as many questions. They were being a lot more formulaic against us. They weren't moving us around. We can't deal with movement. We've got 2 very young, inexperienced defenders and McFadden who can't walk, let alone run at anything above a sort of, you see the people carrying the coffin. They were going quicker than McFadden in most games I've seen him. Like, fucking hell, that guy's slow these days. But Luton played into our strengths. They just played in front of us, or they just tried to batter through us. And it's like, well, you didn't do this in the first half. And then, as previously mentioned, Hamer picked the ball up, looked at the top corner, looked at the ball, and then put the ball in the top corner. And I got an injury because we celebrated quite hard for that one. And then the rest of the game, I can't really remember much of the rest of the game. It was pretty much 2 even teams, sort of quite happy with the result. Luton sort of came back into it more attacking-wise, but don't really seem to remember them doing much. They might have had one more shot that was either cleared off the line or Ben Wilson did something with. I mean, still, I don't get the Ben Wilson thing. I appreciate the fact that Simon Moore's out of form. Ben Wilson just scares me. I know he played all right against Birmingham as well, but why he kept kicking to Jamie Allen is another question mark. And then we drew. And we were like, yay, I'd have taken that before kick-off. We've drawn at Luton. We don't normally draw at Luton. Apart from when Shippers plays, when we won. Normally we lose at Luton. Yay! I'll take a point. Let's go home. That's it.
I thought it was quite
Luton
a fun
done.
game.
It was all right. We scored and we didn't lose. So that's, we scored twice away from home and didn't concede 3. So that's a bonus on most away games this season. I can't really remember. She played quite well. Hamer did all right. Gyökeres is really good, but we already know all that. Still don't think Godden and Gyökeres works. I don't think I'll ever think that'll work. But we keep trying it and it still doesn't work. We haven't really got a bench, so he didn't use any subs, apart from the one he had to bring on because Rose was injured, which we all cheered because Rose is shit. Trying to not be negative about certain players, but,
Paul,
we are still bottom.
do you consider
questions?
Godden and Gyökeres working if they both do their own thing without necessarily working well together? So if one game you've got, does that still, if they continue scoring the goals that they both got 3 now this season? If they continue at that kind of rate, is that still working, or are you like, nah, that's still not good enough?
In their last 12 games they've started together, they've won once. So if they're scoring, but we're losing, then there's an issue there. I'm pretty certain in saying in Godden's last 16 starts, we've only won twice. Godden is an issue because he doesn't do anything. Yes, he may score. This season he scored from the penalty spot and 2 goals from 2 yards out, which is great if we're putting in those crosses. His build-up play is awful. His lack of movement or being offside is getting really irritating. And he's generally a passenger, which is fine. I accept it's fine if he then scores against Luton instead of taking the air shot, or against Birmingham, he doesn't balloon the ball over the bar. Because if he's not going to do anything else, he has to score the chances we create him. And I accept we don't create 4 or 5 chances for him a game, but he's not creating his own chances. And I honestly believe it does hinder Gyökeres because Gyökeres is just going wider and wider. And you think of the goals he scored at the start of last season against Middlesbrough at home, Cardiff at home. There were balls through the middle. He was through 1-on-1 and he was in the middle of the goal. Against Birmingham, to a lesser extent Luton, but mainly against Birmingham, every time he got the ball, he was closer to the corner flag than the goal. And it's like you're pushing your best attacker wide. Again, I don't mind that if Godden's sort of benefiting from all the havoc that Gyökeres causes. And he doesn't benefit from it at all. And I know there was all the thing about they had a big fight against Norwich. Spoke to a guy who I know, he said that isn't true. However, one thing I did notice against Hull is Gyökeres didn't pass the ball to Godden, and Godden gave him fucking stacks of abuse. And it was like, that's the sort of thing that Gyökeres does. He doesn't always score, but he gets in those positions, he drives forward, he has a shot. Against Preston, he was then, you could see he was caught in 2 minds. Do I pass to Godden or don't I? And he kept giving the ball away in positions where Gyökeres doesn't give the ball away. And he had a shot in the second half. You could see Waghorn went over to him and basically just went, don't worry about it, and was trying to prep him up. I honestly don't think Gyökeres and Gordon, it doesn't work because I think they're so similar but so opposite. It's not a partnership because they don't liaise, like they don't work together, but they don't benefit each other either because they don't occupy different strikers in different defenders in different ways. So they're not creating space for each other either. They both want the same ball.
You're a Waghorn kind of guy.
I'm we need a new striker type of guy. We've got 5 strikers.
No, we don't.
Well, okay, we've got Tavares, who he won't play unless he plays him on the right wing. He's got Tyler Walker, who he's turned into a little bit more. He's got Waghorn, who started against Preston we haven't seen since. And he's got Gordon and Gyökeres. And I can understand why he's... Huh?
We've got far many strikers. Usually, we've got far too many strikers. When we got promoted from League One, we did so with Godden almost exclusively playing up front on his own with 2 attacking midfielders behind him. And I think there's probably never been a time at the club where he's been better. And I think Gyökeres is the same. I think they're both. I think the temptation is to look at Godden as someone who wants a strike partner because he's a sort of goal scorer in the way that McNulty really wanted Biamu next to him. But I don't think he does. I think he wants to sort of just pick up chances and not do a great deal else, which I think is why he's so not involved. And I agree with you. I don't think you should, me more than anyone, doesn't think that we should be playing Godden and Gyökeres. But I think we should be playing 2 attacking midfielders, which is why it's so bewildering that we didn't sign more than one in the summer, especially given that the one that we signed is perpetually unfit, which doesn't make any sense to me. But I also get that we've got such a lack of options at the minute that I think we're playing them 2 together just based on the fact that there isn't really anything else to do, is there?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's obviously the killer point, isn't it? And it's a bit other discussions like, are we missing O'Hare? And of course we're missing O'Hare. We're missing O'Hare mainly because we don't have a replacement for O'Hare still. We've signed Casey Palmer, who he got taken off at half-time against Norwich, and we haven't seen him like we saw him for a cameo against Birmingham City. Like, we played you in the 23s today, or under 21s, or whatever, where you can play an older player. The other week, Hamer played for, and Palmer wasn't in that team. And you're like, well, how bad
are these blisters?
What are we doing with this guy? I've got nothing against. I hope he's a big success. But you look at his history, and as I'm sure I said on the pod, if I haven't, I'm going to say it now. The most games he's played in any one season was his first season as a professional footballer at Huddersfield on loan. Since then, he hasn't played more than 16. He hasn't made more than 16 starts in a season, and in November he's 27. So this guy has basically had nearly a 10-year career, and he's never. I mean, it's why. I mean, if it is talent, then why the bloody hell did we bring him in when we knew that this was going to be an issue? If it's not talent, then how the hell are we going to get him through games? Because you might as well just play him week in, week out. It's the only way he's going to get fitness. He's playing games. Give him the games. Give him time.
I feel like I've missed something here. Like, is he unfit? Is that what have we been told? He's unfit, and or are we just guessing because
the thing that went round was that when we first signed him in the first training session is that he was so lacking in match practice that he developed these sort of like gargantuan blisters, didn't he? And I think this was meant to be a kind of emblematic thing of, or maybe it's not, maybe just because we read so much into things. I think the thing was, don't expect this guy to be ready yet. It's going to take ages because I don't think he's really played for 2.5 years. But then why sign someone that you think is not going to be ready for so long? So, yeah, I think my understanding is that he's not featuring as often as you'd expect him to at the moment because he's not in a physical state where he's able to complete a 90-minute period. But someone else will have to tell me if I'm back on the wrong tree there.
That's annoying. Like when he does play, he's kind of he's more pushy than I imagine. He tracks it down. He really gets into people quite heavily more than I thought. And you do want to see him a bit more, but if he can only manage 10 minutes a game, that's a problem.
So okay, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. On the whole, bear with us 1 second while I look on. Old man looks at stuff on the internet to prove point.
Old man interrupts someone else to look on the internet to.
Casey Palmer last season started once and was a sub 5 times. The season before that, he was on loan to Swansea, and he made 2 starts and was a sub 10 times. Like, this isn't we've obviously bought, like, we've given him a 3-year contract. Again, it's things like that absolutely boggle my mind. Give him a 1-year contract with an extent in our favour. We give him an extra year, but again, someone said, whether or not this is true, it wasn't a free signing. He was an undisclosed signing. Apparently, we paid some money for him.
We did.
So we've gone out and, like, we haven't. As I said, we didn't have a transfer budget. We bought two central defenders on loan, and this guy this transfer window, and this is where we've decided to spunk our cash. It's like you look at the squad, and it's like what talking about earlier. It's like we can't play anything other than 3-5-2 because we don't have any wingers. But at the moment, we can't play 2, so we've got to play the box. But we don't have 2 players to play in the box unless he's going to play Eccles. And it's just like, well, you know, it's like he doesn't trust Eccles. He's going to have to play Jamie Allen and like a midfield of Jamie Allen, Casey Palmer, Ben Sheaf, and Josh Eccles. I'm sorry, stinks of League One. It's like, but that's what he's, you know, or his option is sticking with 2 who don't work up front. Or he plays Waghorn as the number 10, which we saw against Preston was delightful. Sorry, Tom, you can talk about Birmingham now. I'll go back in my box.
Yeah, so, the Birmingham game. So, I suppose the main thing was that right at the start, Birmingham had a really good chance that Juninho Bakuna didn't take, and it was a really good chance inside the penalty area that they worked. But from that point onwards, we were the better team. We had shots on goal. We had the ball. We passed it around a bit. We've never really got a sense of a threat with how we were playing. It was a lot of hoping that we can work it to Gyökeres and he's going to take out 2 or 3 or even 4 defenders and produce something brilliant to score a goal. Or it was Harmer after his goal on the Wednesday night producing a pot shot out of nowhere, and Harmer had quite a few shots in that first half, which isn't necessarily the worst thing given how shot shy the rest of this team is, but it just sort of underlined the lack of ideas we seem to have as an attacking unit at times. We've got two or three good individual players, and we're just kind of trying to like roll the dice with them to see if they're going to do something rather than trying to work something. And it's such a contrast really to, say, the game at St Andrews last year, especially sort of like the latter stages of it, where we were just zipping the ball about really quickly and moving Bowman's defence all over the place, and eventually just the dam burst and we got the win there. And then this time around it was just so static, and Bowman knew that all they really had to do for much of the game was just stick 2 or 3 players on Gyökeres, who, as Paul was saying, just kept on going wider and wider to try and get in the game, and kind of caused us more problems in attack because Gyökeres was putting out wide and there's no one really taking up the space that he's leaving in the middle. Allen had quite a decent game, I thought, overall. He got into some good positions and had a couple of chances where it's just the classic thing with Allen, where he's like, if you had longer legs than you do, you'd probably be able to do what you're trying to do. And yeah, I find him a really frustrating player, Jamie Allen, because he's a short player in denial of how short he is. He doesn't seem to have like adapted his game to being short. He doesn't sort of try and take advantage of having a lower centre of gravity. He's like trying the exact same thing a player who has 4 or 5 inches of height on him is trying to do, and so frustrating. And then Godden did almost completely nothing, or even worse than nothing, because he had one really good opening in the first half and he just absolutely balloons his shot. And it's kind of like, well, when you got Godden on the pitch, he needs to be scoring that chance, otherwise there's no point. You might as well do something different. And then in the second half, Birmingham got better. Hannibal came on and he was really industrious and skillful, and that added to Thais Trong. They also had in central midfield and earlier Gino Bakuna, who were kind of doing similar things and causing us a few problems getting us on the back foot, but Hannibal sort of just added that extra level of intensity, and we were not quite holding out, but we looked the inferior team. There wasn't, aside from a few individuals, there wasn't a great deal of quality on show from either side, I felt, when it was sort of a case between us where we were taking quite a lot of shots, but none of them were that threatening, versus Birmingham, who weren't creating that much, but little that they did create had a much higher chance of going in than us. And then just before Mohamed's red card, I thought we were starting to grow into it a little bit, and we were starting to get Birmingham a little bit on the back foot, and you're hoping that maybe something would happen. I thought when Walker came on, he sort of added a bit of energy up front, and just a bit more application and presence than Godwin was showing. And I mean, it was still sort of Tyler Walker trying to do things that he didn't quite have either the confidence or the ability to do, but he was sort of putting his body around there. And yeah, it sort of changed the sort of energy which we were playing with, because we looked quite dead for much of that second half. And that injection of Walker, and to a lesser extent Palmer, just gave us that extra impetus, and that's why it was so frustrating for me, the red card, because it just completely 180'd the game, where we were just suddenly on the back foot for the final bit. And then just one final observation was how Casey Palmer played in central midfield for those final 5 or so minutes. He played like an absolute nutter. I don't know I don't know whether it was less apparent on, like, if you were watching on iFollow, but it was so obvious when you're watching it from behind the goal, just like how much space he was vacating by like trying to chase the ball, where the ball would go to one side of the pitch and he's chasing it, and there's no one in midfield behind him, so Bowen just switched it behind him, and it left us so open. It was ridiculous. It was sort of like someone going, okay, I'd like to put myself about, and this is exactly what I'm going to do. But it was so misguided when you're down to 10 men and you're trying to play central midfield, and then eventually Birmingham had that massive chance from a corner. It's an absolutely fantastic save, it has to be said, from Ben Wilson to keep it 0-0. And it was a 0-0. I think both sides had very much warranted. And I think overall it's the kind of game where I think if that's 3 or 4 games into the season, and maybe the games before we hadn't really got going, and you're sort of looking to build a little bit of confidence, or basically if we were sort of a point or two above or below the relegation zone, I think that's the kind of performance and result you can kind of accept. You can go, we kept the clean sheet, we didn't do too much in attack, but not much had to happen for us to have come out of that with a win. But in the situation we're in, we're 7 points adrift of safety, and even with the games in hand, we are going to have to string together some wins quite quickly, otherwise the situation is going to get out of hand. It doesn't feel like a situation we can sort of eke our way out of in the way we're trying to, but with the hand that Mark Rams has got at the moment, I don't see any other way you can go about it, because we tried being a little bit more proactive earlier this season, and we've just been leaking goals left, right and centre. So maybe it's a bit of a baby step, but I don't think we're in a baby step kind of situation at the moment.
I think that's what he's going for, isn't it, though? That's like, he went mad for Preston, he changed absolutely everything, and, you know, we just look so disjointed, and it just seems like he's doing that thing where he doesn't really want to change the team, and he also doesn't really want to make subs if he can help it. He likes keeping everything exactly the same for as long as possible, unless something bad happens, and then he'll kind of tweak it. And I'm kind of with him on the sense where I think we need to build up some sort of rhythm. We need to be some sort of understanding. So Rose actually being injured, so we don't have any option other than trying to build some sort of stability at the back might be a good thing. You know, they might actually start to gain some feeling for each other. But yeah, Birmingham was like you say, it was one of those games. I'm not used to being like inferior to Birmingham or feeling inferior to Birmingham. The last season they looked absolutely crap compared to us, and I mean, it's a bit of a shift in mindset from when you look at them at the weekend, and they looked more threatening than we do. The only other point I had on that game was just kind of Ben Wilson again. So like you say, really good save. He is one of these people, if he moves an inch off his line, he seems to cause chaos. So he seems to be best just staying on his line and relying on his saves, which is, I don't know how sustainable that is as a methodology for a keeper, but it's worked in the few games he's had. The fact he's kept like a clean sheet now as well, he'll be happy with. But I think Moore is the one who I want back in, relatively soon. I mean, I'm putting that down to a bit of a blip, a bit of a mad couple of games, and hopefully he's kind of the longer term fix.
The problem with the Birmingham game is it did illustrate a couple of sort of issues we've got. Is just we just don't have goals. There's very few goals in that team. I think Ben Sheaf's scored twice, and that was both at St Andrews last season. Like Jamie Allen's only got 4 for us. You look at you've got the 2 strikers who are expecting to score goals. Dabo's never scored for us. Bidwell, sorry. You look around the team and it's sort of, Hamer scores 4 or 5 goals a season. We are a team who's like the last 2 goals we scored were both amazing finishes. And I think we scored quite a few from set pieces and a penalty this season. Like, we're not a team who are particularly free flowing in the attacking third. And one of my issues on Saturday was, we got to sort of some really good positions, and then we were so tentative in getting the ball into the box or making that final pass. And it is lack of confidence. Clearly it's lack of confidence. But also, it's not just that. It's lack of players who are capable and have the awareness to make those passes. And, Jamie Allen had 2 really good chances. As you said, the problem is they're falling to Jamie Allen, and he's not that good. That's the problem. And for the first time since the promotion seat, like the policeman got promoted, you're looking through the team and you're like, Wilson, I'm not convinced is a championship goalkeeper. He can make some decent saves, but he's not someone you'd want there all season. McFadden's past it. Again, not sorry about saying that. He just is, and he shouldn't be there. It's not his fault. I don't blame McFadden for the fact he's in the team, but he shouldn't be in the team. Dabo's not where he was. Like, whether or not he'll get there this season, but he's the one who's constantly getting 5 or 6 out of 10. You've got, on the other side, you've got Bidwell, who's fine. He's a 6, 7 every week, but he's not really that creative. As I said earlier, the problem is he wants to put crosses in against Luton. That's all he wanted to do. Who's scoring those crosses? No one. We haven't got a striker who, Godden can score with his head. But if you're putting the ball in against 3 big Birmingham centre-halves, we're not winning that. And Gyökeres, I think, scored 1 with his head, and that was the one that hit him in the face against Blackpool. So we've got, and I think Joey made this point last season, we've got a methodology of trying to score goals, and it's a methodology that doesn't work with the strikers we've got on the pitch. We're not strikers who want high-hanging crosses. Midfield, Sheaf's going to have a good season, but players have good seasons in a relegation team. Jamie Allen is a 6 out of 10 because, and again, it was really noticeable. I know Norwich are a class above. The problem with Jamie Allen is his passes are just behind players. He doesn't give the ball away. He just kills momentum by just being inaccurate. And then, you've got the strikers. Gyökeres will have a great season. But again, if he gets 10 by Christmas and we're still bottom, someone in the Championship will offer enough money for us to sell him because he can get them into the Premier League. And then you've got Godden. At Walker, we're still not sure about. Walker's a player that we're not even sure he wants. He's just here. Waghorn's another player, from what we understand, they don't really want, but he's still here. So you look at the bench and you're just like, well, how many of these players on the bench does he want? How many is he going to give a chance to? And you're stuck with, as Dominic clearly put earlier, we're stuck with the hand you've got. Is he playing the hand as best he can? Or does it matter? Because the hand he's got just isn't good enough. And I thought a draw was a fair result. We were the better team in the first half, but we had lots of long-range shots. Birmingham weren't overly threatened. When Birmingham were on top, we had to clear the ball off the line. Fadgen's clearance off the line was amazing. But, we didn't create the same amount of havoc that they did. And, I accept I'm being slightly negative, but this isn't as I said earlier, this isn't a new team. This is a team that we've had for virtually this whole year. This is the squad that we've had since last September, like the transfer window before the last transfer window. So this team has basically been together now for 60 games. In our last 23 league games, we picked up 22 points. And you can look at all those sort of stats and go, well, it's not relevant, but it is relevant because it's this team, this management team, it's this unit that are on a form of 2 wins in 18 or whatever it is. It's this side that aren't winning back-to-back games or haven't won back-to-back games or have won 1 home game since March. It's this team. So this team have got to sort it out. The question is there a group of players in this team who can win 5 of the next 11 to make sure we're not in the bottom 3 come the World Cup? From where we're sat now, it's a massive ask.
I was going to wrap things up by saying, is there anything different than anyone would do in the next game after the international weekend? But I suppose the answer is bring O'Hare in. I guess it'd be interesting just very quickly to go around the room and see who O'Hare would come in for. So I assume, Neil, you would bring O'Hare in.
Yeah, I think we have to. I think if you pick anything from what's happened to this point, the lack of that kind of player in the team is why we don't look quite the same. So God knows how fit he's going to be, but drop him in there, and with no Hamer, I know what Robbins is going to do. He's going to put Jamie Allen back in with Sheaf. I don't know what else you do. I think he will do that, and I can't be bothered to guess what else. I just think he will do that because he wants familiarity, and that's
what would you do,
as close as he gets to it. I'll probably do the same because I want familiarity and I want the team to start to feel that they've decided to play. And I don't necessarily like Jamie Allen, but it's kind of the same phrase that you guys have been saying. Like, it's the card with me doubt. I don't know if anything else, dropping somebody totally brand new into the system and asking them to connect with everybody else around them is any more of a punt than putting in Jamie Allen, who at least knows how to play in that position. And I've at least seen him play in that position and have good games. So I will do it. I don't trust myself. I don't think it's actually a great idea, but I just don't think we've got anything else.
I kind of doubt that O'Hare would even be fit for the Middlesbrough game. But it's this more question of, if you have an O'Hare to bring in, where do you bring him in? Because I think I'd like to see the box back. I think it makes us look more solid. Obviously, the issue right now is Harmer is going to be suspended for the next 3 or 4 games, and Palmer isn't fit, so that really limits the ability to play that box. It's sort of O'Hare and Allen behind Gyökeres, and then you're kind of scratching around for midfielders to play alongside Sheaf. I wouldn't mind playing Eccles alongside Sheaf because I like Eccles and I think he's better in central midfield than at wing back. Yeah, it's a muchness at the moment. Yeah, it's a really tough situation to try and pick out what is ideal at the moment. But yeah, I'd go for bringing O'Hare into the box and try and make that work.
I mean, if O'Hare's fit, you've got to play him because we don't have a number 10 at the moment. But again, even if you just think back to last season, we had the option of Shippers playing as a number 10. He played there a couple of times. Also played there a couple of times last season. So we knew we needed a number 10 in the summer because we needed an alternative to O'Hare anyway. But we'd also let 2 players who had played there last season to, different successes. Just trying to look now, I think Maatsen scored 3 goals. Again, he did play the number 10 role quite well in the times he did play there. With the sort of lack of options, we can't rip it up. We can't go 4 at the back and 3 in midfield and 3 up front because you're then talking of even more square pegs in round holes of sort of Gyökeres on the right wing, or Waghorn on the right wing, or Tavares on the right wing. We've over the last couple of years hollowed out the squad, so the squad can only play 3-5-2. We don't have variety, which is fine because 3-5-2's worked amazingly well for us. So you don't have wingers that you're never going to play in the squad. We can't afford to carry players like that. So we've sort of positioned ourselves in. There is obviously, I'm assuming that Liam Kelly might be back close to it because he's back on the pitch. Whether or not I'd want Liam Kelly back on the pitch, because it does frighten me that we might play a game with Wilson in goal, McFadden in midfield, Kelly in midfield. I mean, McFadden in defence, Kelly in midfield, Jamie Allen and Matty Godden. And that just, that isn't championship quality in any way, shape or form. On the positive side, Middlesbrough played 4 away games. They've lost 3 and have conceded 8. They are, if we were going to ask for a nice home game, they're about as good as we could ask for at the moment because they're in dire shit. So there is the added advantage that we're playing against a team that we'd probably want to play against. Because after that, I said it's Burnley and Sheffield United. And I know everyone goes, last season we beat the bottom teams. No, last season we beat all the teams at the bottom. And that's what kept us up. And a bit of a tangent, if you look at the comparative results for last season we beat both Hull and Birmingham away, and we lost it, or we got picked up 1 point from those games. It's not looking great, whichever way we carve it up. I'm at a loss, Joey. I keep thinking about this. What would I do? If I was club manager, what would I do? And I keep looking, and as you say, I look at it and go, I don't trust enough of those players at the moment. But the alternatives are absolutely kids, or it's players playing completely out of position. And we go back to Waghorn as a number 10, which isn't something I want to contemplate, but I don't see the variety there. I don't see the options. And I don't see enough players who can go into a different role and adequately perform it. I can see enough players who can do a different role because we need them to. And my main worry now is we do lose someone like McFadden, because we lost McFadden. Suddenly he was playing Josh Reed at left back, who he not touched at all since he joined, and Bidwell alongside Panzo and Doyle in defence. I can't remember a time we've been so close to one injury. Sheaf got injured.
Do you think Josh
it's just
got injured?
How frightening would that be?
No.
It's.
Well, actually,
yeah, I mean,
if he got injured, you could play Godwin for his own.
Because, could I? Yeah, I mean, I'll ask you the question. We had a big debate about this because obviously we sold Dominic Hyam, and we know why we sold Dominic Hyam. We sold Dominic Hyam because we needed the cash. We needed the cash just to pay the payments for Hamer, Gyökeres, and I'm assuming some was Sheaf. But we knew we had to pay some money this summer. So we sold, basically, we all know that Blackburn came in, we said no, and then a couple of weeks later we went, shit, Blackburn, how much will you pay for him? Because we needed to sell someone. So I'll ask you the question. I reckon we have 5 sellable assets. We have Gyökeres, we have O'Hare, we have Hamer, we have Sheaf, and we have Hyam. Okay, we had 5, we now have 4. Which of those 5 would you have sold? On the proviso that you knew that we were unlikely to get any of the cash, or we were going to get a marginal amount, but we had to sell. Which one of those 5 would you sell? Dom?
Out of the 5, maybe Harmer, just because we've got midfield players and, well, we're bloody well getting used to not having him at the rate he's going this season. So, yeah, it sort of seems like he's maybe the one you could live without the most, based on the other issues we seem to be having.
Neil?
I hate saying it, but all things being equal, I probably still would have sold Hyam, but the only reason why I would have is if everything else had been the same. So if O'Hare would have been fit and Rose hadn't become this version of Michael Rose rather than the one that we all thought was pretty good, everything else stays the same, and then you just slot in Rose in place of Hyam. On the face of it, feels like a workable thing. I just, because that's the only kind of like-for-like swap I could think of, I probably would have still done it. I wouldn't have in real life. I would have had a different thought process, but that's kind of where I am. Everybody else is just, we are a very, very different team without Joker. We aren't the attacking threat without Jokeres. Hamer and Sheaf actually elevate us as a midfield. You remove any of them from the midfield, suddenly we look low class. O'Hare, we've seen, first month of the season, actually just how much of an impact his entire game has on who we are and how we play. And not discounting Dom Heim, because I love Dom Heim. He's probably my favourite player last season, and he has been for a long time. But I always felt like, broadly, you could replace him with another, Michael Rose, and hope that they'd be able to sustain that. It doesn't know. I don't know if that's true or not anymore, even with some of the crazy performances we've seen, but that's what I would have done.
I think you're not going to say O'Hare, just because I think that the impact on the attacking third without O'Hare, I think, would have been fairly similar to the impact that Dom Heim's absence is having on the defence, having him not been replaced. And I think that Dom Heim only serves to sort of put a sticking plaster over our financial situation, whereas I think we'd probably got at least 5 million for O'Hare. And I think that potentially you get 5 million for O'Hare, you possibly either dent the finances a bit better, or you possibly have a replacement for him. Whereas $1.5 million just goes in the pit, doesn't it, with Hyam? That's not even going to replace anyone. So I sort of think, and I also wonder whether there will come a point where O'Hare's value will diminish rapidly, where I think he's probably overrated to some extent. I think Neil's really astute about what he says, that you realise how much, how important he is to us by his absence so far this season. But I sort of think Hyam's value would have probably stuck at 1.5 million for a long, long time. Whereas actually, I wonder whether O'Hare is really, in the grand scheme of things, worth 5 or 6 million that we would have got for him last summer. You have a feeling that when we eventually sell him, whenever that is, if we get relegated or whatever, we probably won't get as much as we would have got last summer for him. So that's that. It's an incredibly boring
that has to be a factor, doesn't
it? to that question.
No, but I think it's a fair point, because, again, Jokeres, I think, started the season well, but you almost was Jokeres. Was the point to sell Jokeres last summer? That's when he's hit the zeitgeist. He scored all those goals. We've had a good season. He's got 2 years left on his contract. You sell now, because the next option is you've got a year. Whatever happened this season, and all the people going, but we wanted him to build on him. Well, we haven't built on him. We haven't built, we've kept the big three, or the big four if you include Sheaf. But we haven't built on it. We haven't got a better squad around them. And we knew at the end of last season that team wasn't good enough to get us into the playoffs. So we've not strengthened it. So keeping them is a bit like, well, yeah, you've kept your crown jewels, but you've put them in a sort of, you haven't put them in a lead cased box. You put them in a paper box. That they're going to go. Next summer, we're going to have to sell all three, unless we got promoted. Next summer, we were going to sell them because we weren't going to let them go to the end of their contracts. None of them were going to sign new contracts, because that'd be madness, because they'll all be 23, 24, 25. They're not spending more time at Cov than they have to, by the obligation they've already signed up to. So it was almost like, well, we probably should have sold, if not all three of them, one of them. But as I said, if we're bottom at Christmas and Jokeres has scored 5, 6, 7 goals, a team around the playoffs is just going to bid for him, isn't there? And it's like, then you've got that issue again. We've already seen that, heads are going to turn in that month in January. It's going to be an awkward month of, are we keeping them, are they going? And even if we keep them and we go down, which let's put our chance of relegation at the moment at 60-40, 60% chance going out, 40% staying up, which is probably about right, because we are bottom. When he picked up 3 points, we haven't won in months. Next summer, if we get relegated, they're buying from a League One side. We've got even less wriggle room. We've got even less strength. So we're going to sell them for cheaper, because why not? Teams are just going to offer less, but we'd have to accept less, because we're not going to get to the point where we let them go on a free, because CZ aren't crazy. They're not great owners, but they're not crazy. They're not going to lose £20 million worth of talents for nothing. I just think we were caught in that difficult place between we wanted to keep them because they're our best players. If we'd have sold them, could we have strengthened the whole squad and had a slight, not as good team overall, but a better squad? Maybe. Now we're in the position where we've got three or four really good players, and they'll have really good seasons. But around them, they're not quality. They're players who on their day are all right. And it's I think what we've seen of the kid Doyle. I think Doyle's a really good player. I think Doyle will probably have a really good career. I don't think he might not make it at Man City, but I think Doyle will have a really good. He's looked really good for us. But he's not the player I want. The situation we're in. Sorry, Neil.
Who are we? Like, how does Sisu make money off us then? Like, as an investment, let's say a long-term investment, like, if they've got this ceiling where, we give it a little bit of a go, like, and it's just a question because we all, the more I see of this thing, like, I just don't understand, like, how they assume to make they've been fine to kind of back us from where we were to this point, and then they get to a point where it's like, oh no, this is too much. We can't go any further than this, even though the payday ultimately could be bigger. I mean, this isn't a way to enjoy running the business, is it? Like scraping to try and sell Birmingham and then just get relegated again, and then it's just like there's got to be more to it than that.
And as I'm sure Dom knows far better than me, it's not even just a case of relegation is obviously a big thing. We know relegation's a big thing. Next summer, virtually the entire squad's out of contract. It's not like we're going to go down and bounce straight back up with 10 of the same players. If we go down, it's a whole rebuild. It's an absolute whole rebuild. And it's a whole rebuild in League One.
By the way? Sorry to interrupt you. Did he sign a new contract?
Yeah, he's got 2 years left.
He signed one in January, didn't he? Was it a 2-year extension? Or
basically just a year extension, yeah. Right. So, and that's the thing. It's,
just to give us a chance to get
your question, in answer to your question, I have no idea. I have no idea. It doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense because not only have they been stupid in not selling one of the big three at their most sellable, profitable, but also they haven't strengthened the squad. So, I've just seen the thing of Mark Rollins is saying the position we're in at the moment is embarrassing. And it's like, well, as we've been doing this podcast long enough, you know how angry I can be. I'm not angry. I'd be raging about players. And it's like, it's not Carl McFadden's fault. He's 35. He shouldn't be there. It's not Jamie Allen's fault. We've been in the Championship for 3 seasons. He should be replaced. It's not, don't blame him for not being quite good enough because it's a situation he probably shouldn't be in anymore. Or on the bench, bring him on. Fine, he's a squad player. It's not first choice. He's definitely not first choice as number 10. We knew that last season. He's not first choice as number 10. I don't blame Robbins. I don't think he's playing the cards he's got. Whether or not I'd make different decisions, it doesn't matter, does it? Because it's not like we're sat here going, he should be playing this guy. We're just going, ideally, he wouldn't be playing that guy. Ideally, he wouldn't play Gordon Gyökeres. But as Joey said, he's playing it because he doesn't have any other options. He's not playing it because he thinks it's an amazing move. He's playing it because the alternative is Casey Palmer, or the kid Howden. That's the problem. And it also, the last couple of years we've been very lucky that some really good loan or youth players have come through. There's normally been one youth player in the team who's really stepped up. We don't have a youth player this season. Even going back to, I wasn't his massive fan, but Sam McCallum was a perfectly adequate left wing back. He did a job. We've got no one from the academy who's even stepping in. We're talking about Josh Eccles, but he's 22. He should be a first teamer if he's going to make